And it captures everything, so if you don't mind listening, it's a pretty cool story. I entitled the piece, Life is Good. My daughter's name was Mackenzie Mia Good. I decided to write about my journey through the loss of my 17-year-old daughter, Mackenzie Mia Good. Mackenzie was in a car accident on January 29, 2010, while on her way to school. She hit snow and ice, not more than a mile from our home in Warwick, Mass. She suffered a traumatic brain injury. To look at her, she looked like my sweet daughter sleeping. My husband Bob and I went to the hospital chapel, and after a while of prayer, I said to him, "Let's just sit quiet and listen to what God has to say." Soon after, I felt and heard God's voice speaking in a very authoritative tone, saying to me, "I am in control." So, on January 30th, our family and a few of her friends had to say goodbye to our daughter, sister, niece, and friend. I recall my torment and the words that I kept repeating. "She's my life, she's my life." And she still is my life. She has defined my new life, or death has defined it, and the lives of 6 others. You see, Mackenzie saved 6 lives through organ donation. I myself want to talk about my daughter all the time to whoever will listen. It is healing for me. God has placed just the right people at just the right time in my path for a simple smile or listening ear, and I receive more hugs than you can imagine. Additionally, I've been given Mackenzie's friends, her BFFs, to help me as we stumble through this life-altering experience. We are changed forever. For their high school graduation, which was about 5 months from the time that she passed, we had a monarch butterfly launch in memory of Ken's, but moreover, I think as a symbol that we were all faced with new directions and new beginnings. It was beautiful. So many of her friends had sweet sentiments written on top of their graduation caps or on the sleeves of their graduation gowns, such as "Life is good" and "The Good Life." So several weeks after Kenzie left us, I received my first letter from one of her recipients. It was a letter written by his 3 sons, thanking us for her gift of life. It was so great to receive this first letter, and I knew I had to write back right away. The next morning, as I was getting dressed, I had noticed on my dresser a Guidepost magazine. It had been sitting there for months unread, and on the cover was an article about a mother who had lost her daughter similarly and a request to find the recipient of her daughter's liver. This first letter I had just received the day before was from the family of the recipient of my daughter's liver. So I sat down and I wrote a letter to all of Kenzie's recipients and included a copy of that Guidepost article. I've since heard from 5 of the recipients and have been regularly corresponding with 3 of them, now 4 of them actually. Michael, who suffered from cystic fibrosis his entire life, received Kenzie's lungs. His mother wrote that he worked very hard post-transplant and said, "Do you suppose he's gotten some support and coaching from a special physical education angel?" You see, Kenzie was headed for college to major in physical education. She was a big soccer player, too. Michael also completed a 6-mile walk shortly after in the Great Strides Walkathon for the Cystic Fibrosis Foundation with his doctor of 20 years, and he's doing well. He's getting married in August now. Larry, who is now 72 years old and the recipient of Mackenzie's heart, had struggled with writing at first, not knowing how to thank us. Larry had suffered from ischemic cardiomyopathy. I had asked him in one of my letters, as I've asked each person, if he noticed any changes in his life, whether it be a newfound fondness for food or music or whatever, and this is what he wrote. "The biggest change I've noticed is that I have greater feelings for others. You know, like when a heartwarming story is being told, I tend to choke up more. I mean a lot more. I'm an ex-Marine and really never allowed emotion like this before." He says, "I'm sort of enjoying these new emotions. Maybe the new me is a better person than the old me. I do think that Mackenzie is still living within me." He added in another letter, "You write about small miracles. I believe I'm seeing them everywhere. Mackenzie's heart has given me new insight into things that I never paid attention to before. I believe, as you do, that God has chosen to give me Mackenzie's heart for a reason." Lastly, I'm saving the best for last, is Al, the recipient of Mackenzie's pancreas. Al suffered from diabetes, starting with juvenile diabetes as a child. I received a beautiful card on the anniversary date of Kenzie's death that had a butterfly on it, and from Al and his wife Tina. In their card was a letter, and one of the first things that Tina wrote was this: "But I have a question about Mackenzie, if you wouldn't mind answering. Did she eat a lot of peanut butter and apple slices?" That's become my husband Al's favorite thing lately, to the point that we buy 2 jars of peanut butter at a time. Kenzie enjoyed peanut butter and apple slices as a little girl. It was a favorite snack. This past summer, we met Al and Tina and their beautiful 3 daughters as we entertained them up at our summer camp for a cookout and campfire. This experience was incredible. It was wonderful to see how Kenzie's gift had changed so many lives. I will say that I was a complete wreck after they left. But again, just part of the process called grief. It is there for a reason. My grief is bittersweet. My daughter's life was short but purposeful. There's no explanation for why she encountered her untimely death, but to believe that God has His own intricate plan for our lives. Who would have ever thought that I would be writing of this account? I must add that Mackenzie loved the Lord, and thankfully as her mother I can rest easy knowing she is exactly where she's supposed to be, and we will be reunited again. So in closing, I'd just like you to remember this: life is good.
My goodness, I'm coming from the office today.
Sorry.
Thank you. Sorry. Okay. Thank you. I'm delighted to be here, and I'm really thrilled that this art exhibit has finally made it to Vermont, thanks to New England Organ Bank, Donate Life New England, Brattleboro-Memorial-Hospital, and Art and Wendy. And thank you also for hosting this beautiful reception. My piece is a photograph of my granddaughter, Helen, and it was taken just a few days after we celebrated her first transplant anniversary. We had a huge celebration for the anniversary itself, and we're enjoying just kind of a laid-back day on our deck, a beautiful summer day like today. And a monarch butterfly appeared sort of out of nowhere. And not only did it appear, it allowed my little, at the time, 4-year-old granddaughter to pick it up and sat on her finger for a good 20 minutes while I just snapped photograph after photograph. And it was, if you look at the photograph, you see that there's, been some cropping, but it's how the day felt. It felt like there was nothing else in that moment except for the 2 of them. As I look at the photograph now, not only does it remind me of that day, but it also reminds me of the journey, the long journey that took us to that day. Helen was born with biliary atresia, which is a chronic inflammation of the bile ducts of the liver. When she was 4 weeks and 4 days old, she had a Kasai procedure at Children's Hospital, Philadelphia, where a piece of her intestine was attached to her liver and then back to the intestine in order to reestablish bile flow. Prior to the 1960s, when this procedure was developed, children just simply died of liver failure. At the time of her surgery, we were told that we had like 99.9% chance that she would require a liver transplant before she was 5. We of course wanted to believe that we were the special ones and that would not happen, and she'd be able to advance to adulthood with her liver intact. She did quite well for about 18 months. The first year was a little rough, in and out of the hospital with bouts of cholangitis, which required 10 days on an IV antibiotic. But she continued to grow, and she was a terrific eater, which she still is to this day. So, like most BA kids, she did not require supplemental feedings. And developmentally was on track. Everything was good until she was about 18 months old. And then she started to, she'd always had a very jaundiced appearance, which just began to progress. Her eyes were very yellow, her skin was very yellow. Kids with, I guess most people with end-stage liver disease have a collection of unconjugated bilirubin under their skin, so she itched all the time, absolutely all the time, with absolutely no relief. She was on rifampin, which helped, but certainly did not alleviate it completely. So, at the age of 18 months old, she was listed at Children's Hospital Boston for a liver transplant. It's hard to describe what that feels like. My children, my daughter, and my son-in-law at that time did not have a transplant-worthy car. So my husband and I were the the drivers with our own vehicles. So I would say for at least the next 2 to 3 months, anytime the phone rang, I jumped out of my skin. It took a long time to learn to live with being listed. And the ramifications, the fact that your deepest hope lies in somebody else's deepest tragedy. It's a really hard thing to put your head around. So she did very well. We had ups and downs, certainly. She had one long hospitalization that was actually non-transplant related. And then 2 years and 3 days from the date she was listed, we received the call. And we all jumped in the car and ran to Boston. We were told at the time she was listed that we needed to be in the car and on the road within an hour or lose the chance of this perfect organ. We got down there probably about 2 in the afternoon. She went into surgery at 7 o'clock that night. And she was in surgery until 5 o'clock the next morning. They finally came out at 1:30 in the morning to tell us that they had started to place the new organ into her body. So we always consider July 2nd, which is also my other daughter's, my younger daughter's birthday, to be her transplant anniversary. One thing that I just want to, the miracle of transplant. When she had her surgery at 4 weeks old, when I saw her in the recovery room, I had to leave. I had to leave. I locked myself in a bathroom, and I just saw she looked so sick. She was just a baby, and she looked so sick. And when we were finally allowed to see her post-transplant at 6:30 in the morning, I was absolutely amazed. She was radiant. She looked beautiful. Her skin, she looked like a healthy child. She was finally a healthy child. I mean, it was a long road for her for recovery. She had a few small glitches, ended up being in children's for almost 6 weeks, but knock on wood, we just celebrated our 2nd transplant anniversary. She's going to kindergarten in the fall, and she is smart and sassy, and none of us can keep up with her, just as it should be with a 5-year-old. So there will never be adequate words to express my gratitude, our gratitude to the donor family who at the absolute worst moment of their lives made this incredibly loving and selfless decision. Thank you. Thank you. And then, just to throw one more thing in the midst of all of this, my mother, who'd suffered from chronic kidney disease, her kidneys finally failed. And she was put on dialysis. And stubborn as she is, it was very difficult to get her to consider transplant with a live donor. She was too old technically for a cadaverous transplant because in the state of Massachusetts, at that time at least, it was at least a 5-year waiting in order to get a new kidney. So she finally consented to allow me to be tested, and I was very blessed to be found to be a good match and in good enough health to donate. And we celebrated our 5th transplant anniversary on April 24th of this year. Wow. So thank you so much to Donate Life, and God bless the
So I don't know all you guys. I'm Kirsten Besky. I'm the chair of the hospital. I know Art. And I have to say, in the 9 years I've been part of this hospital, and I've been very proud of this hospital many times. I'm very honored that we have you guys here in this exhibit up, because it is obviously a very important, meaningful project. And I really thank all of you for, I thank Art and Wendy for hosting this event. I thank you for coming and sharing your stories, and your daughter Mackenzie. It was beautiful. And so I just really want to thank you all and let everyone here look around a little more and enjoy some more drinks and food. But thank you all for coming. Appreciate it. And that's all I can say.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I had a